Hey there, I'm Chintamani Cloud, and in today's video, I'd like to guide us through a workshop that will help break down the traditional Ashtanga yoga closing sequence. And this is what we would attach to any sequence if we're beginner to advanced to our vinyasa practice. It really focuses on core strengthening, on hip opening, and on pranayama, on deep breathing. So even if you can't do a full lotus expression, and I'll demonstrate what that looks like, then I'll also demonstrate and give hints and tips for ways to modify full lotus so that you can still participate in the closing sequence, still participate in the pranayama, and of course, start to exercise the body in the right way so that you can one day then do the full expressions of the poses. So that's what we got planned for today. Let's get to our mats and I'll meet you there. Namaste. In today's workshop, I'd like to break down the traditional Ashtanga yoga closing sequence. This is done by yogis beginners to advanced to end their practice. And though it is quite an advanced alignment, it is still taught to beginners. And of course, if a beginner is not able to do the full expression of the pose, then the beginner is taught modifications and preparations to one day then be able to manifest the postures. So what I'd like to do today is start off with a demonstration of what the traditional alignment looks like for the closing sequence. And then we'll break it down so that you can try it too. And we'll talk about the different modifications that we can use to help open and strengthen the body if we're not able to do the full expressions of the poses themselves yet. So beginning with our demonstration now, the closing sequence happens after our headstand, where we come into a child's pose, we do a vinyasa, we end up in a downward facing dog, and we jump forward through our downward facing dog to a seated position with our legs extended forward, and we come into full lotus position. Traditionally, we would stay here starting with 10 breaths and longer even if you can. But for beginners, maybe you're starting with 3 breaths and adding breaths as you're ready to. And of course, those breaths are the deep internal sound breathing that's created when we restrict the muscles in the back of the throat. When we take in deep and slow regulated breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. And then different schools then take on a different alignment. For the school that I was practicing with, we come then to a position where our hands come back behind us. We're pulling the shoulders back, but drawing in through the bandhas and looking up. Pulling the shoulders back, drawing the core in. And then we'd stay here for an additional 10 breaths, doing our pranayamic deep breathing. And after the 10 breaths, we'd come into a forward mudra with the arms and hands, where our index fingers and thumbs are touching, and we're actively extending the last 3 fingers of each hand. The shoulders are not rolling forward, they're widening apart back behind us, and we continue to engage through Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, and Jalandhara Bandha. We engage all the muscles that live along the spine to strengthen ourselves and grow up tall right through the crown of the head. And we'd be here again, gazing at the tip of the nose for another 10 deep breaths. And the last part of the sequence is coming into Utplutihi. This is where we come into an arm balancing posture that really helps us focus on our core. We're trying to lift the glutes, thighs, knees off the ground as we balance our weight into the shoulder girdle, manifesting it through the core, engaging through the pelvic floor, and we'd be here for another 10 counts or longer, and then we lower down. So talking about different ways that we can modify the position. First, if we come into seated pose and we try maybe for the first time or maybe for the 100th time to come into our full lotus position and we struggle. Checking in first that we're going to draw the right foot in towards us. So usually I would mirror for folks in their viewing, but I want to make sure that I practice according to the correct alignment, and right leg is always in first. So for your posture, you want to make sure you lift the calf up, open the foot towards the ceiling as you bring the right foot towards the right hip. Then we can untuck the left leg and do the same. We're lifting the calf up, we're opening the foot out, and we're drawing the left foot towards the right heel as I lift the calf up. And we're actually trying to stay engaged through the legs. So what happens to many yogis when they come into full lotus is that they cross the legs and they release all the muscles in their body. And then they feel a lot of pressure, particularly between those shin bones and in the ankles. But if we can stay really active through the legs, even lifting the knees up and drawing the femur bones into the hip sockets as we tuck the tailbone under, drawing through the glutes and the pelvic floor, drawing through our bandhas and maintain our lengthened spine, we can actually feel more comfortable here. So you can try that out. If this is still not working for you and any pain is manifesting in the knee, then we'll try for some other options. So one of them would be coming into half lotus, drawing right foot to right heel, and doing 5 breaths in the forward fold expression with right foot on top, and then doing another 5 breaths of the forward fold with left leg on top. And you can choose. As you come forward, you can bring your hands to your knees and pull yourself down to create the compression between the chest and the legs. Or if you want to work on your shoulder opening, you can reach back for the one foot and see if you grab it, or just reach both hands back and grab opposite elbows. Either way, paying attention. Are we rounding through the spine? Are the shoulders rolling forward? And if they are, then we need to come to a place, and it doesn't matter what class you have right behind you, even if the hands are even just grabbing the wrists, pull the shoulders and the elbows back. And then you can practice your forward compression, or if that's too much, just practice opening through the shoulders as you hold half lotus for 5 breaths in an upright position, and then 5 breaths on the second side. So if we don't have full lotus, we can aim for half lotus on right side, half lotus on left side, with or without the fold, with or without the shoulder opener. I recommend doing the shoulder opener in stages, with or without the forward fold. So that's one option. Another option is we could come just into seated cross-legged position and support the knees with blocks, because we want the knees to be lifted as we come forward. That's what's going to create the stretch that we're looking to create in the body. So, and most yoga studios, and you're maybe practicing in a yoga studio, you'll be able to borrow blocks then. But if you're practicing at home, you could also fold up a towel or a blanket into a really condensed, firm shape and use that under each leg. And you might not think you need the blocks, but again, if we come into the cross-legged position and we just let go of all of our muscles, we might find some pain and discomfort between the shin bones and the ankles. So what we're gonna try to do is utilize blocks to lift the knees up, and this way I can create my right arm, left arm, forward fold, and feel the thighs and the chest coming together as I try to bring my head towards the floor. And again, you'd stay here for 10 breaths. The same will go for the next expression where we create our back bend. A person could be in half lotus, 5 breaths with left leg, 5 breaths with right leg, or cross-legged position. And if you really, really want to get expert, you can even uncross and recross with the opposite leg in first to really even out the stretching sensation in your body. And again, you can do so that way in the forward fold expression or in this back bend expression. You could break it down 5 breaths, or if that's too much, even starting off with 2 on each side or 3 on each side. Then we come into a position with our hands are forward, and again, you would either just need to modify your lotus. Hopefully your arms will be really comfortable in this mudra position. We want to lengthen the back of the neck and head up as the chin draws in, gazing at the tip of the nose, Jalandhara Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, Muladhara Bandha, and deep breathing here, either in your cross-legged position or your half lotus position or your full lotus position. And if you're in a full lotus or half lotus position and you need to support with blocks too, feel welcome to try that out. Anytime there's any pain in the knee, we know that we shouldn't be coming into the poses. That's a real clear sign, and it's usually related to tightness in the hips. So just keeping really mindful of those two options. And then for that last pose, which is known as Utplutihi, what'll happen next will be really dependent on your alignment. Often, if you're able to get into full lotus, you can almost practice this expression without blocks, but if a person is in a cross-legged position, then to help lift the feet off the floor, a little extra height can be used. And so that's why sometimes Tolasana can be used with blocks, further, not towards the knees, but further back towards the hips, and then you can push off the floor. Now we're really high, we can get to a position where we can lift the feet off the ground. So that could be one way to begin the preparations for Utplutihi. And if you're in your half lotus, again, still with blocks, pushing in and then trying to lift the last foot off the floor. You stay there for maybe at the beginning 2 to 3 breaths, and in time working towards 4 and then 5 breaths on either side if you're doing cross-legged position or half lotus position. That's coming into all of our modifications then for our closing sequence, and hopefully you'll be able to modify this so that you can experience the deep hip opening, the deep core engagement alongside steady breath and steady gaze.